Hey guys, it's Cairo, and this is a triggerfish. So triggerfish are a type of reef fish, and they're found in coral reefs all over the world, and they come in a ton of different species and varieties. This one happens to be a crosshatch trigger. It came from an aquarium in the East Bay, and when these guys are alive, they're very colorful. They're black, and they have like these brightly colored scale edges. This guy's wet preserved, so he's faded quite a bit, but he's still got some interesting features that we can talk about. Anyway, these guys are called triggerfishes because of this thing. It's a little trigger, which is a modified fin, and what this is it's the leading edge of the fin, and it's got all these backward-facing spines, so it's got like a kind of a nail file texture to it. And you'll notice that triggerfish also have this distinctive body shape. They have these longer faces, and in different languages they have different names. In Chinese, they're called horse-face fishes, because they've got these long faces, and they've got these very distinctive like upper and lower fins. So they have a fin up top and a fin on the bottom, and I never sort of understood what this arrangement was for until I actually saw them in the wild earlier this year. So earlier this year, I was diving off the coast of Cozumel, and I was in between some coral reefs, and there was a bunch of triggerfish, and I was like, all right, triggerfish. And so I went over and I tried to touch them, and there was like 3 of them, and they were just all like, swimming. They were just all hanging out. And then the minute I reached towards them, these fish turned on their side and they slotted themselves into like tiny crevices in the coral, and they popped their triggers out, and they were stuck in there. And all of a sudden I just like this, like, oh my God, like this moment of like, oh, so that's what they're for. Like, this is like one of those behaviors that you never see in things like wildlife documentaries or in aquariums, because the fish they're not doing anything. They're just hanging out, right? But like when you approach them, like in the wild, it's incredible, like what they did. That was just like a sort of like a moment of revelation for me, what this arrangement was for. But what this fin arrangement allows them to do is that it allows them to swim on their side, and they'll just like slide into a slot in the coral, just like that. So anyway, and that explains a lot about this too, where the rough edge allows them to just wedge in there. So anyway, so they have a lot of other interesting features besides that. They have this thing where they're sort of like chameleons. They can move their eyes independently. This guy has very sunken eyes because he's a wet specimen, but they're able to do that. They're also really known for their very thick, tough skin. And this guy, if you can feel this guy, his skin is very armor-like, and he's also got this like weird face with this chin, and this mouth. Right? So, couple things. They're like rodents, where they have teeth that never stop growing. Not all species do, but many species of triggerfish do. And the other thing is, the armor coupled with this ever-growing teeth is for something, and it's actually for eating hard-shelled creatures like snails, and most specifically sea urchins. So what they'll do is that they'll go up to sea urchins and they'll use their teeth to sort of pick off the spines and tear the urchins apart, and the urchins will be unable to pierce their skin because of the tough armored outer covering. And it's actually incredibly useful because a lot of the reef urchins, they're not like pencil urchins or intertidal urchins that you see at the beaches. If you ever go to like, beaches in California, there's like purple urchins, and they just have like sort of dullish spines, and you touch them and everybody like, or the kind of urchins that you see in like aquarium touch tanks where they're super safe to touch. A lot of reef urchins have these like really needle sharp spines that are super brittle. And the first time I saw one, like, I reached over and I tried to touch it, and the spines went right through my hand and they broke in there, and that was not a great experience. So I guess this is something that really protects the fish from their own prey, and they're such weird fish, but they're perfectly adapted for exactly what they do, which is like eating hard-shelled items and urchins in between coral and slotting into like tiny crevices in the coral. But anyway, That is a triggerfish.